We're really happy to have you back, and it's a brand new podcast for you, Marissa. So, welcome to Divine Rising New Earth. We hosted Annika and I a previous podcast called Brainwash Yourself, and we had Marissa on as a recurring guest. She is a major inspiration to us, and we're so happy to have you back because although you are expert at deprogramming and reprogramming, and that was the subject matter of our last podcast. You are so gifted also as a new Earth Wayshower, and you're one of the few people who I've heard refer to themselves in that way. And I think it's so authentic, and I would love to hear more in this episode about your perspective on the new earth and what that means to you as well, because that's just so aligned with the message of our podcast and what we're all about. So I think that it is just the perfect opportunity to have that conversation. And I'm really excited.
Welcome. Thank you so much. It's such a joy to be here and to be reunited. And at the same time, it's like we can't even really say like back or welcome back or I've returned because we've all shifted so much and everything is shifting, right? Uh, and we were talking a little bit about cohesion. But first, let's go there. What you asked about New Earth and the New Earth paradigm. This is so important. So I want to share my mentor is Lisa Transcendence Brown, and she's a huge way shower, enormous body of work to assist us in understanding heart-centered living and quantum consciousness, and so the deprogramming is a huge part of that. But essentially, New Earth is a frequency. So, we talk about dimensions and all these exciting words that are so full of energy and like so it's like inviting and exciting, like what's that? So a dimension is also a frequency. And it's aligned with the heart center, right? Where we're coming with an open heart and we're in our highest authentic self, meaning that we're comfortable. We really don't have tension in the mind and in the body. We feel safe to be who we really are. We know who we really are, right? And this is a consistent process, this unfolding. Like one of the things I say is our soul evolution, our consciousness journey is a soul bloom. So we are consistently getting to know more and more who we really are, right? And there's a stripping away. And so with that, there's a stripping away of a lot of the ego identity. And we can use so many words for that. You could say the smaller self, right? The one that's engaged in lack consciousness, separation, distortion, more negative thinking, dependent upon external validation, recognition, materialism, right? So before we started, we were talking a little bit about like fragmentation. And that's really the old paradigm, was to keep everyone small, separated, not really knowing who they are, also being completely twisted away from any of our inner guidance and wisdom, right? And so one of the key codes I use a lot to reference the old paradigm, the 3D matrix. It has nothing to do with the physical reality. That's the really important thing to understand. And Lisa was the one that helped me to understand this. Because initially we think that the new earth is going to be a completely like, oh yeah, we're gonna, get on a ship and we're going to go to another planet, like the human mind makes everything literal, right? Because we're trying to understand these really advanced concepts, but we're applying the old way of looking at things, of a literal way versus a quantum way. So the new earth has nothing to do with the physical reality, it's the mindset. Where is our mind? Who are we? Where is our heart? Are we here now? Right? And this brings in like so many of the mystics would talk about, be here now. Are we in the past ruminating on something, beating ourselves up? Are we in the future, having anxiety? Like, are we even fucking here right now? Right? And so the new earth is a paradigm that we access through our loving hearts as a being of love, meaning that we love ourselves and that we love others, but there's a balance there, right? So it's not just some of the more superficial portrayals that we may see sometimes or may stereotype this as like, oh, it's all, unicorns and rainbows and crystals. It's a lot of that, but there's also an enormous amount of power to be a creator, to be in your truth and in the boldness, the courage, right? And the other day I was grounding with all these energies because there's just so much going on. And I was out in the forest picking mushrooms and I heard the courage of your convictions. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, yes, it is time for us. We are all being called the clarion call to live, express, share in an aligned way, a high integrity, eloquent, diplomatic, right? With love, with awareness. our courage, our convictions to live that, right? And so this new paradigm, which is also New Earth, it is the Aquarian age where we have enormous responsibility as creator beings to not only be our true self, but to practice self-governance and sovereignty, right? And this is a huge thing we're seeing right now is this shift from the different systems and structures in place that essentially everyone was in the role of like a subject, right? To a government, to some kind of an industrial system, whether it's the school system, right? And so when we look at the old paradigm versus the new paradigm, the old paradigm, we all signed up for the most incredible, hardcore, gnarly boot camp ever to learn who we really are and to learn what love is and how that comes through us. And I love like the cosmic Maya, they talk about like time is art. You know, your energy, like everything is the new currency, your expression. And so your self love, your self recognition, everyone is a leader, everyone is a divine sovereign in the new paradigm. And that's part of New Earth is, you know, we don't wait for someone else to take out the trash, right? We don't wait for change. We don't wait, oh, yeah, well, when we vote, everything will change. Well, there's a lot of ways we can take action to be the change in action, right? So hopefully that like starts to break it down a little bit. It's so big, you know.
I feel like that was so potent and so powerful and just like an absolute divine expression of this new frequency, because I completely agree. One time I read this quote that, heaven is not a place, it is a frequency. And that is why in the same landscape, one person could be experience heaven, one person could be experience hell. And so it is something that doesn't have to take forever for us to get to this new earth. It's like we can all be living in that vibrational reality for ourselves. And then that collectively starts to like link up, which I appreciate so much too about your grid work and all of the things that you share. You'll have everybody create this visualization, link up the quantum energy grid, and kind of begin to anchor this frequency for a greater number of people, because it is almost like the more people who are starting to embody that frequency, that mindset, that state of being, it actually makes it like tangibly, practically more available for somebody else to enter into that as well, where it might have been a little bit less accessible to them before, because we are also energetically and vibrationally connected, that like your vibrational energy field comes into contact with somebody else who maybe had not seen that possibility before, and some opportunity could open up to them to discover how to enter into that for themselves without you even ever having to talk, like just like crossing on the street. So
Beautiful.
I just like really love the way you express that, because I've also been, I think a lot of people, this is probably also very connected to the Pluto in Aquarius, but reflecting on sovereignty and about that. I think a lot of collective themes are moving around where people are starting to see where they're not being able to go as fast as their soul would like to, or accomplish what their soul actually wants to accomplish, while they're basically having to use somebody else as a middleman for their resources, for accomplishing various different, projects or tasks that they want to complete. And it's really brought me to think about how much magic can happen when it's basically just like you and the divine, and you're like, there is no middleman, like I am the channel. And that's the ultimate sovereignty, I think. And that is this remembrance that I completely agree with you is so vital to the new earth. It's like you are the cause, you have the power, it's all within you. There's something here that only you can offer to this new grid of the new earth. And that only happens, I think, when we genuinely do realize that there doesn't need to be a middleman for anything. Like you have everything you need, and you are the authority figure on whatever frequency you're meant to bring here and whatever you're meant to offer. So just like the coming into the ownership of that and the embodiment of that and the expression of that. But thank you so much for sharing. So beautiful.
100%. I love reflecting on that topic as well. And I love what you said. And I think so much of this concept and this energy of like regulating and policing comes from this fear of what might happen if we let people have their free will and do what they want, as opposed to healing. Like I always say, my political view is healing, because injustice is always going to manifest on any system until people heal, because that's where violence and harm and injustice and crime comes from, not from oh, we haven't gotten the laws and the punishments just right to solve this. There's no good way to do it. And when it comes to healing, it is about self responsibility, even for those of us who are so sensitive and so compassionate and care so much about helping others. I've been reflecting so much about how if you don't have the capacity to support yourself through certain intense aspects of the human experience, then it's impossible for you to have that capacity to support anyone else. So, the best thing that we can do for ourselves and everyone, and the only thing to improve the world, is to heal and take self responsibility. And I also loved what you were saying about the fragmentation and the cohesion. That's something that I noticed a lot about in the old paradigm. Like, you have your work self, and then your friend self, and then yourself with your family, and then yourself on social media, and then yourself with a stranger, and then yourself with your boyfriend. And it's like, God forbid your friend groups mix, or your work colleague finds your Instagram or something like that, because that's not okay for that part of yourself to like be seen in that situation. And I think that it is like such a beautiful experience to just integrate the different aspects and be able to show up as who you are. And there's part of it too of like subverting the expectations of other people, and the fact that sometimes there is pressure to like show up a certain way and not bring your full self. And so it does take courage in a way, but I think that is like so inspiring too. And you don't have to be just like someone else to inspire them to be themselves just by being yourself.
Totally. Well, and there's a lot of nuance with that as well, because one thing that's happening that was part of the Aquarian age is the collective and community, and finding more of our own community, like-hearted, like frequency, like consciousness, right? Where we can be more of ourselves with the other. So it's a really interesting contrast between the individual and the individual being their own universe, right? And own connection, sovereign connection. I loved what you were saying about, removing the middleman, all of that kind of stuff, is that we are the portal, right? But then when we come together in collaboration and co-creation, that's where you see how we are all also the grid, right? And we come together and further animate and add even more atomic power to a focus together as a group, with a shared, heartfelt intent, right? And so that's where the humanity comes in, is finding more of our tribe. And we will do that, right? And then it's also standing alone as a representative or an ambassador of your own. And then with the nuance, there's intergenerational and there's adapting. So there's also the shapeshifter element, where you're still your authentic self in the most simple, stripped away version, meaning that your identity is super simplified, clarified, purified. I am a soul. I love. I am, right? And then you can take that into more, what I say, the nuanced of social situations, where you maybe have different generations that are plugged into different timelines of their own, right? So this way we're learning how to be ourselves, our most authentic and at times vulnerable too, but in an appropriate alignment, depending on who we are around, right? Because it depends, like, if you're at the grocery store, right, versus like us together right now versus at Thanksgiving dinner, like, you know what I'm saying? And so there's the shapeshifter element of adapting, but you notice it's not conforming. So we're still nonconformists, right? Because we can still be, but we can find a beautiful way to do it where it doesn't ruffle feathers.
It's like the difference between wearing a mask and reading the room. You don't have to like give the same message in the same way to every person, because you can tell based on their energy like a more appropriate way to approach a situation, but it's not coming from like fear and insecurity of being seen for who you are and how you feel.
Yes, 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 exactly. 100%. And sometimes your energy will be all the shift that's needed, or like the only message that's needed. And there's some places definitely where it's not going to serve your energy to bring forth certain things, but like your presence alone
Yes.
is the power.
And silence,
So I
sometimes
love that.
silence speaks a lot as well.
Yeah.
Like if you just don't participate in something, and you're not being negative about it, you're not being judgmental about it, like there's no harsh energy emanating from you. You're just kind of like, I'm gonna just shift, inside of myself and like be quiet for a minute or go over here. Like That's really powerful also forms of communication.
Absolutely. I've actually seen that work insanely powerfully. If you're like, you have a specific dynamic that you're like, I just actually am going to stop participating in this, but like, there's no conversation about it. There's nothing like that. And like, you can literally watch whole structures or like people completely vibrate out of your reality just by like not engaging in like one specific way you used to engage. And yeah, I mean, that's like the power of the energy that we bring and what like we're consenting to in all of our interactions with life itself and with the people around us. It's like, what do we really want to be, yeah, authentically participating in? So also beautiful. I really want to dive into, I know a lot you've been talking in your new videos that you've been offering. We're going to put Merissa's info in the show notes so you can all find her and follow her. Because she gives incredible updates. Essentially, I feel like really supportive for people starting to integrate into this new Earth frequency. And there's such practical ways to begin to do this, or physically, mentally, energetically, collectively, with grid work, all of these things. And I know you're also a really gifted astrologer. So I would love if you would tie in this concept of this new Earth frequency shift we're all experiencing and very actively participating in, with this shift into Pluto and Aquarius, which we had moved slightly, we had moved in, Pluto had moved into Aquarius and then moved back into Capricorn. And I know we all experienced a lot from that. You were talking about it in one of your recent videos. If you want to share anything on that section of what happened as well, went retrograde, and then now is, I believe, moving forward and almost back into Aquarius, if I'm not incorrect. But I'll let you speak on it.
For sure. Yes. So essentially, this is so interesting. I took some notes on this too, because I definitely feel like we should definitely discuss this. So in the beginning of the year, we had a little teaser of Aquarius, of Pluto and Aquarius. And so many of us were essentially receiving downloads, visions, perhaps remembering dreams and heart wishes that were like stuffed, repressed, tucked away, like even things that we knew in childhood, like, oh, I would love to do this. Like, so we started to receive downloads of who we are, what we would like to do for our next chapter, like what are these like fantastical realities that really ring our bells. And accessing like really out there stuff because Aquarius is also the extraterrestrial. So what's really interesting is Aquarius, you've got these two planets with such different energies. So you've got Uranus, which is sky god energy, galactic extraterrestrial energy, right? Electrical, like God consciousness. Like then you have Saturn, which is very much like law, earth. How do we actually work within the construct of living in a physical form on the earth? Things like time, but also bending time, like very interesting, right? So there's these kind of contrasting elements of taking the codes, the light codes from heaven, and then how do we systemize them onto earth, right? In a way that is a very organized and sacred chaos. So there is order within the chaos, but there's no, how do we say, like none of the Capricornian themes, which were a lot of control and give your power away to everything else but your soul light, right? Give your power away to money, give your power away to this industry, that industry, the media, your generational trauma, like all, you know what I mean? It was all about give it all away. You have nothing left. You barely have any space within yourself to even conceive of who you are, right? So this is the total opposite of that. So all year we're getting these little like, oh wow, and oh my God, and like these things are starting to dissolve, like the strongholds that were woven through us, because the old paradigm matrix is within us. It's within our belief systems, right? It's within our ancestral stuff, like our DNA, like so there's a lot of clearing. But essentially, all year we're getting these impressions, these dream visions that are actually real, these like seeds. And now we have about 4 weeks left, about a month left of Pluto and Capricorn. And it's how do you take all these concepts of heaven and new earth and make them real now? How do you create the systems, the structures, the architecture, the grid work, the beautiful, sacred, geometrical, divine blueprints inside of yourself right now? What does it look like? What does it mean? How do we do this every day? This is a quantum reality. So every day you could wake up and like you're just like, oh my God, I'm spinning around, like all this stuff's going on, like all these things are collapsing, like, oh, where am I? How do? And so the first piece is discipline. This is the time for self mastery. And what's really challenging is we have distractions everywhere, right? So you know we came here for the like most intense mastery video game ever. We would be bored with anything less, right? So one important thing I always like to say, because this is so important for everyone to know, for every single one of us, a soul that got a body, there were 100,000 more behind that didn't get it, that didn't get to incarnate here right now for this. You have all the codes inside of you. Everything is pre-installed. It is easier now than ever before to access all the key codes, all your blueprints. Like that's what we're all about, right? And so how do we create a system then that's a quantum flow, right? So you're flowing with your state of mind every day, state of your heart every day, your physical energy, the frequency of like how you're feeling. Like, do you feel heavy? Like, meaning, are you going through some kind of light body restructuring where you feel like you're made of lead and you can barely move and you just need to lay in bed, you know, and not really project a lot of energy out, right? Are you in a transmitter mode or a receiver mode? Like, so it's checking in with where you are and aligning and unifying every day. Every day. Sometimes with like all the massive solar flares going on, like that's a lot of photonic light. And I call it like the diamond drill process, the roto rooter process, like down in the root chakra, like through our DNA, like there are like surgical processes with like lasers, like light lasers happening. And you could have physical, you know, discomfort, right? Psychological discomfort. All of a sudden you're having these memories of like 20 years ago, this person said this to you in passing and it was really mean in the hallway in middle school. And you're like, why am I remembering this? It's because it's all coming out of you so that you can be more clear, clarified, free of density, right? As we're going into this. And so this is all the crystalline process of more clarity. So to maximize the potential of these next 4 weeks until mid-November, right? You want to figure out like sit, receive. So I receive the information now. Like I'm primarily a fire elemental, very masculine, and like how my brain like you know originally works, all my hard wiring. So I have had to learn more of a divine feminine water elemental embodiment process to receive information. So if I don't know something, I'm like, wow, I'm not really sure how to do this. And will you please, you know, show me like what's the best way to show up, to share this, to do this now in this new paradigm, right? Um, and so every single day, the self mastery, and this is why it's challenging because we don't live in the ashram right now. We don't live in the temple right now because the Aquarian age is about being with the people, right? In the modern technology, we're thrown into the mix. So the Pisces age was about being on the mountain. You definitely still want to spend some time on the mountain when you feel the call, get away, go to nature, spend a lot of time in nature. But we're not allowed to withdraw and be in the cave alone without any of the discord. No, we're here to uplift, right? To like anchor this light and to support everyone through this, where it's like a midwifery process, right? And birth is messy. So as Pluto goes back into Aquarius, we have 248 years of Pluto in Aquarius. And it's going to be, it's fast moving energy with that Uranus. You think about electrical voltage and, you know, these higher frequencies like we're just buzzing, you know, the Kundalini energy, like there's so much going on. Sometimes you feel like you're just going to explode, you know, into light and just dissolve, right? And so the embodiment practices are very important. But the main thing to align is to unify. And so you want to look at these four aspects of your being. Where's my mind? Like, what's my mindset? Am I back in my separated self, my ego self, the old patterns of thought? It's easy to go back there. That's okay. Cool. Let's come back to this now. What's present right now? Okay, I'm in this room and it's warm and it's lovely. And okay, you know, tune in, use your senses. And then where's my emotions? What am I feeling? And the big thing is emotional mastery. Like this next 6 months, we have Mars in Cancer. Everyone's going to be so uncomfortable with their emotional stuff, but that's the point. And I love the visual of like the sand and the oyster makes the pearl. That irritation, consistent, you know, makes the pearl, right? So it's a really intense time emotionally, and it's going to continue to intensify emotionally as people are dealing with their repressed stuff. And you can see multiple layers of consciousness, like, well, look at all the war that's going on. That's some of that Mars and Cancer. There's that need to defend, you know, defend the motherland, defend the religion, defend the belief system, defend the tribe, blah, blah, blah. That's all the old paradigm stuff. So those people are clearing and, you know, processing that. They're doing their work, right? Then there are other levels of there's nothing to defend. There's nothing to defend. because I'm not an ego. That's a portion, a part, of the human experience, but that's not my overall identifier or frame of reference. So we're going to be going through all kinds of emotional stuff. The water, we're going to be going into the deepest waters ever. We already have, Mars has been in Cancer for a little while now, But yeah, there's a lot about power dynamics, coming into your power, taking your power back from everything, redefining yourself, like stripping it away. So simple. It's just, I am. It's not about what you have, right? It's not about any of the degrees anymore, like any of that. It's I am. I'm here right now. Like, hey, I've got this, you've got this, let's exchange, right? So that's that Aquarian energy, that exchange. And your energy is your currency. And so I'll go back, sorry, to 4 things: mind, emotional field. And the best way, like me, I had to learn so much about how to manage my emotions, how to feel comfortable with them, right? Because again, like being more like fiery elemental, like there's not a lot of water in my chart, but then I found where the water is in my chart and I dove deep into it, is getting comfortable looking at yourself emotionally. Like, oh, wow, my ego is prone to defensiveness, or, but what is here now? Like, how do you feel today? And let it be an altar in front of you to check in with yourself emotionally. Do you need to do some self-care? Do you need some tenderness? Do you need to reparent an aspect of yourself, like a child aspect of yourself, right? So there's this trinitized beingness: Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, Sacred Child. This Trinity beingness, and you're kind of always rotating between all of those, and taking care, right? So we have the mindset: where's my mind? Am I here now? Am I taking charge? Am I taking like responsibility for myself? Am I remembering who I am to then command myself and my reality as a sovereign being? Where are my emotions? And you have to see and be with them until you feel that peace again, until you feel that kind of, I call it an emptying, where I feel like I just emptied out like all this shit. I just surrendered it all, and like I felt it all. And so I wrote a process down about that, is because it's really important. Surrender to what is here within your being now. Sit at the altar of your soul in this space. Ask, what is here? Name it. Use your words. Name it. Use your words. Use your throat chakra aloud to say, oh, wow, I'm observing that there's a part of me that is fearful about this. Oh, really? Where's that coming from? So there's this nurturing, quality, but using yourself as the instrument, and you just say, wow. And if you give a name to something, it's a very powerful shamanic process, right? Say it out loud, give a name to it. Don't have any shame and judgment about it. It's just here. It's a teacher. It's visiting you. It's a guest. What do they have for you? What are they showing you? Where you're lying to yourself, where you forgot something, where you're pretending again, of something that you're not. Cool. Okay. Wow. That's incredible. And so it starts to become this observation. Then you feel the release. You feel you decharged it, right? And so there's no more suppressing and stuffing down and running from it, right? And I was really good at all of those things. That's why I'm so passionate about talking about it, because it's like it's going to hang on you. You're going to feel it. You can't run from it. You can't run from yourself. Everywhere you go, there you are. So just sit and deal. Don't waste your precious energy. You've got beauty to create, amazing things to receive, amazing people, but you're not going to hear the impulse if you're in the wrong frequency, the misaligned frequency, right? In the doldrums, you know what I mean? So then you feel the lightning of your being return. Then you're starting to feel more of your energy because it's not going out to all these things. And so that's the 4 things. So mindset, emotional realm, physical body energy, and then your energy. You can feel when you dip. Oh my gosh, I started thinking about that subject and it's pulling me down. Like Abraham Hicks stuff is great for this. If you have too much of a charge about something, then don't think about it. Come more into the things that make you feel happy and expanded, because that's how you're going to receive the insight for the things that you're not yet aligned with. It's like a process of gently calibrating yourself over. So that's the alignment process on a daily basis. You see how much work it takes on a level, right? To be fully conscious. And then you notice like, oh, I was just around that person and they said something and my ego had a really good reaction inside. Like I feel this kind of this sinking feeling. Let me pull away and see what that was, because they just taught me something. They just taught me something through that sacred relational mirroring, the sacred mirror of where I'm holding something that had a belief that's going against myself. And how do I know it's going against myself? Because I feel not well right now. I feel not good. I feel like shit. Like there's something you're going to feel, right? And so this brings us into the next layer of becoming feelers again, becoming energy beings. because we are energy beings. We get to be so blessed in this physical form. But you start to become a professional reader of the energy all around you and how you are reacting to it, and seeing yourself and your body and your light body too, with your nervous system. And when you were talking earlier about, being the presence, well, all nervous systems, we know this from heart math. You can look up heartmath, I think, .org, and their amazing work. The strongest nervous system in the room, whether it's in a trauma state or a super relaxed Zen state, all the other nervous systems in the room are going to sync up with it, because we are communal beings, right? We are a grid work together. So that's why also our self work is so important. Like you were sharing, like, be the change you wish to see. Buddha said that too. You want to change the world? Focus on your enlightenment like there's no tomorrow. So this is the discipline that's required to function in the new paradigm. It gets easier as we clarify more, right? Because we're constantly being hit with programming. So it's like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Oh my gosh, I woke up, I felt so good. And then this person like gave me a side eye, and then it's okay. Just deal with it. What did that do to you? And come back. Just keep coming back home to your home frequency. And with consistency, it gets stronger. And then it's easier to be in this space. And then you're living as energy. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like I have a rule for myself. I don't let my light quotient, my battery, my solar cell get below 20%, because then I turn into my human self. I'm separated off. I'm negative. I'm snappy, like all that's how oh, my light's low, because I'm not able to hold my highest state of being within and share that with other people. So when I feel it start to go low, and there's certain indicators that I'll have body pain, I'll start to feel kind of like crabby. There's just little, like, find your barometers for yourself. Like, oh, I'm slipping into my ego self again. I need to refuel myself. And that's when you want to pull away, and do your work, have some quiet time, go out in nature, whatever it is, be in silence. The most powerful tools are stillness and silence. And you were talking about New Earth, and New Earth is here now. That frequency is here now. It's actually been here for decades, and it's becoming more and more and more easy for us, thanks to amazing wayshowers and the first wavers who have been coming for several hundred years, to start to kind of anchor this, to weave it here through their writings and their works and prophecies and all these metaphysical tools. And so it is become easier and easier for all of us to access it, but we have to do it. We have to do the work. Yeah.
Yes, I resonate with that so deeply. It's so true. New Earth now, once you start tuning into these frequencies, you'll find the most visionary texts that were published decades and decades or centuries ago. And you're like, wow, this person has like such a futuristic mindset. It's amazing. And one thing I definitely observe from the old paradigm is certain people's guilt and shame about certain emotions that they hold, to the point where those emotions are totally denied and put into their shadow. And it's okay. Our emotions are a signal from our body, and our body is a beautiful gift from the earth. And when we feel certain emotions, it's just a little signal, like a little signpost of what direction our heart wants to go. And it can be nuanced, because when we actually deny certain emotions, they do stagnate, and they do kind of cause harm and cause destruction. So it is one of those paradoxes of the quantum paradigm, that in order to clear out these emotions, you do need to accept them. And they are okay, and they are information and tools.
Beautiful.
And that was also a really profound journey for me over the years that has been super rewarding. So thank you for sharing on that. And so much more of what you said was just absolutely beautiful.
I love that you went there, because this is how we remove the old paradigm matrix from ourselves, is to allow ourselves to go into the deepest, darkest, ugliest, black goo, evil, whatever words you want to say, okay? It doesn't matter. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter what we did in unconsciousness. No one cares. It's
Mhm.
all like it's so important for us to remember that. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you went through. It doesn't matter what you felt like. This was all before we had access to what we have now. It's like stuff from the past. And the biggest thing is actually what I've learned is it's when we actually abandoned ourselves, when we neglected ourselves, when we let someone else matter more than ourselves. That's what the old paradigm is all about. Like everything matters more than you. Right. And now it's the opposite of that, which is so beautiful. And so, yeah, it is so important that people know that it's safe to go there. It could be hard. It could be like, oh my gosh, this is some dark shit. Sure. But that's what the whole point of unifying is, is this bringing the light into the cave, into the deep ocean, like whatever visuals. Like I love using like visuals to, going into the dark forest, where are the creepy crawlies? And what's amazing is time and time again, you go there and you discover like, oh my gosh, it's like a child aspect of myself. It's not
Mhm.
even a monster. Like it feels so scary and it feels like you're just gonna, but that's part of the ego death. That's the ego saying like, oh my gosh, if we go there, I'm gonna get obliterated. I'm gonna lose control, right? But it's so powerful. So
Thank you. And you can't deny it away. That is like that spiritual toxic
yeah,
bypassing of like, I'm angry. No, I'm peaceful. I'm upset. Like, no, I'm happy. It's like, if that truly can shift your charge and not just feel like a repression, great. Because when you are upset, there is that resistance. You don't want to feel that way. And that's kind of like what the Buddha talks about how our attachment to like happiness is actually what causes our suffering. So it's like I can feel this upsetting emotion when I am upset that I feel that way. It's like another layer. So what is actually a helpful stepping stone for me is sometimes to say, it's okay that I feel this way. I'm upset and that's okay. And I loved something that you shared actually in your videos years ago actually really helped me on this journey of when you start to notice you're caught up in this mental spin of kind of like trying to justify to yourself why you do or don't feel the way that you do, just to say thank you for showing me, just to tell your body thanks for showing me this information, noted. You don't
yeah,
have to change everything and call that person and tell and say something and feel differently right now or know what it means. You can just say thanks for this information, like that's okay.
yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
That's so powerful. Yeah, beautiful. Very important.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
it's like realizing it's all sacred. Our darkness is sacred too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like there's a ever present presence behind everything that is always there, and that is like our connection to our true self, and it gets to like witness and be there for everything that almost like the smaller s self experiences through this entire human journey we have. And it's like just allowing that witness to be the witness to whatever is going on, no matter what. Like that's the place of peace, the place of alignment, rather than like some sort of internal war that's going on. Because like there is really like there's nothing, it's the whole thing that like nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It's kind of just taking the thinking out of the equation. I mean, like for me, that's what I find. It's like I almost don't even label these kinds of things. It's just like there is an energy happening and I'm just here with it. And like that's it. There's like there's nothing good, there's nothing bad. I do have tools that I use to move the energy within me, and I just feel how that shifts things, whether it be my breath, whether it be just with sitting with something and just using the power of my conscious awareness, because that is the ever illuminating light that is within. And or whether it be walking, moving the body, there's so many, using certain sounds, using certain mantras, there's so many frequencies. Sorry, there's so many technologies. All of them are frequency based that we can utilize, that have been around for a very long time, but I think are becoming a lot more mainstream and known, as especially we move into the age of Aquarius, which is a very compared to what we've experienced in the past, not necessarily like in the ancient past where a lot of these things were used, but there's so much ancient future technology that we have access and that we have availability to. And that is definitely something we love to share about on Divine Rising New Earth, because there really are so many tools to help you. Like, nobody is alone, you know. I mean, we're here for you. There's so many free resources online, like just via YouTube, that you can utilize that can help move and shift your state. And once you kind of start to get used to what really works for you in certain circumstances, that is coming back into sovereignty again, because you're like, I know what I need to navigate whatever it is that I'm experiencing. Is, you know, there's nothing that I can't face, because both you are the infinite, omnipotent, omnipresent, like force of the divine, like that is within you always. And then also there's so many things that you can utilize to help you anytime. And, you know, we talk about that a lot on Divine Rising New Earth, you know, our favorite things, subliminals, mantras, meditation. We do breath work together almost every day. I love Kundalini yoga. There's so many things. I think that's another thing, moving into the Pluto and Aquarius, that everyone can do to prepare and just increase their sovereignty, is just getting to know their favorite tools that work for them, and like continually expanding that toolbox. And I know you share so many of those on your channel as well, including becoming more aware of your own energy field and your like ability to ground into the earth and get to know the feelings of your chakras, and taking those moments to present yourself. And that is, I mean, it's such a gift to the self, and then it is that mirror that is also such a gift to the collective, because together we're coming together to create that grid that you're talking about. And I know we talked about this in our last podcast with you, but I would love, if you would share a little bit about the grid working aspect of things that we can all do to kind of contribute to the elevation of the frequency of the grid on planet Earth. Because I think everybody who's listening, you know, you are part of this elevation that allows everybody greater and greater access to the frequency of the new earth, and invaluable, and I know can help a lot of people.
Oh boy, I love talking about grid working. So I'm very excited to go there. And before that, I just want to reflect that I just really love what you shared about eventually, you know, we move beyond definitions and labels. And a great one is self or not self. You just notice a wobble. You're like, wait, I just don't feel like my truest self right now. Okay, you know, and not having to even know what it is. Right. So there is a step, a stage where we don't even care anymore. You just know you're not like, my frequency dipped a little bit. Okay. All right. I don't feel my fullness. And I like feeling my fullness because it's just this orgasmic ecstasy, peace, the deepest peace, right? Access to infinite creative potential and ideas and deep peace, just this calm. And that's, I think, is important for everyone to start to really know who they are at the most base core home frequency. What is your home frequency? It's peace, just the most peace and relaxed state, no tension, no worries. It's like you want to listen to that song, Don't Worry, Be Happy, you know, right? And so I just want to say that I really appreciate the way that you spoke about that, because it's a simplification, you know, of self-knowing, the intimacy of self-knowing. So yeah, so thank you. It's just beautiful. Yeah. Um, Oh my gosh, so grid work. Oh my gosh. I have quite a few videos on this, because I'm so passionate about it. And it's essentially our own innate connections, that we are an extension of Gaia Sophia, of the earth. You know, she gifted us this spaceship that is the body. And there's this connection, this intimate, beautiful connection that all we have to do is bring our attention to, and you can start to really connect and tune in into the natural world all around you. And um, I love Sandra Walter, an amazing wayshower. She shared, all you have to do is go out on Gaia and say, show me. I want to connect to the crystalline grids. I want to feel my oneness with it, which is innate. Show me. And she taught us that, like, just say, show me. And you go out there and you're like, get your camera ready on your phone, because you're going to capture light codes on the sun. And, you know, I mean, just the most incredible things. Um, and so, grid work right now, with the direction where it's gone for me, I love this so much. Like I love when I see stuff that's like sparking through the collectives. So over a year ago, I did a video about Maui and what happened on Maui with the fires and stuff. And I was talking about elemental sovereignty. And I was talking about elemental and like weather grid working. Sometimes I'll call it weather witching because we all have, thank you. And
Mhm.
this is where my Ayurveda hat comes in. So I'm also a clinical Ayurvedic specialist. And what I really resonate with at a shamanic level is their cosmology about all of creation, this elemental connection, and that all of us are, we're all star particles, right? In form, like condensed into a form that works amazingly, like by some miracle, and we're all this amalgam of different elements. Each of us has the capacity to connect with the wind, right? The fire could be representative of the sun, the sunlight, or the fire in your candle or your fireplace, the waters, right? The earth, and everything comes from ether or akasha. So everything comes from that initial, initial spark of consciousness. All these forms come through. So when we're seeing a lot of the things that we're seeing with extreme weather, there's a couple things that come into play, and we will speak in an encoded way so that everything is kosher. But, some things are kind of natural and some things maybe seem unnatural. But regardless of what we are observing, humanity is intricately connected at an elemental level through their own beingness with the elements of nature. So you'll start to notice as part of the shift that there are contracts where groups of souls have incarnated into particular spots on the globe to be a part of the shift, and the weather is expressing where they are in their psychological and emotional state. It's very, very fascinating stuff. So the more of us that come into peace and sovereignty and serenity, right? And just this chill, like presence, this beautiful, peaceful, but empowered I am presence, you'll notice the weather shifts around you. The weather actually conforms to you. You can ask like, oh, I've got this friend visiting from out of town, and I know that she would benefit so much from being out on Gaia. Like maybe we could have some sun today, like if it's highest aligned, you get sun, you get rainbows. So you start to notice just how much of your own reality you exist in. Even if you live with other people, like the whole thing, none of it matters because it's your own internal reality that's then creating an external experience. And so you'll notice that, like when I go to Sedona, I go in like the summer and all these different times when people are like, oh, that's, you shouldn't go, da, da, da. We get clouds, we get rain, we get lower temperatures. Like the weather conforms to you as your own universe. And that's kind of interesting. So I just feel like with all of the increased, the acceleration of weather events that are going to continue to contribute to the shift, it allows communities to form. It allows people to come together more, right? It disrupts the typical like comfortable, like I'm going to get in my car at 8 and I'm going to drive to work and I don't even know my neighbor. It's disrupting all of that so that we can come together more. And that's, it's happening where it's aligned for that to happen and so forth. But yeah, I felt like the weather aspect was really important because we can call on the full sovereign divine expression of Gaia through the elements where we live to support her, to support Gaia, right? So that then there isn't like manipulation perhaps or a nefarious, that's part of the old paradigm is let me dominate the sanctity of the natural realm for my own gain, for my own whatever weird intent is that isn't really divine, right? It's a self-serving intent. So that's one of the most powerful forms of grid working I think we can all engage right now is to connect with the natural world, connect with the earth, the fire, the air, the water, and the ether and the light, of consciousness, and just say out loud, you are allowed to express yourself in your sovereign, free, highest aligned, expression. I love you so much. I love seeing how you carry the leaves through the wind, the wind carries the leaves for me, spiraling, like what a gift, right? So allowing this authentic expression, this freedom of ourselves and all of creation in tandem, right? We can go out and declare that all the time and just as like a prayer, as an intention. Another thing that has been coming through the last few years when it comes to grid working and our connection to the grid. So we have a lot of grids. We have like psychic grids, like Dr. Jose Arguelles wrote about, and he was the one responsible for the harmonic convergence. And he actually was the founder of Earth Day back in the 70s. Like, he has an incredible, massive catalog of work. His books are amazing. The website 13moon.org, I think, is an extension, and lawoftime.org are extensions of his work. His disciples have taken forward his works. But he would talk about the noosphere. And he was very connected with our star family. And he would talk about there's the technosphere, which is what we're seeing right now with the advent of technology and AI, as well as, some people are going to want to be integrated with technology. They're going to want to go more into like, bionic person, like that's their experience that they want. Other people are going to go more into the light body technology and the grid technology of Gaia, which it's funny because artificial technology always is trying to replicate what it sees in the divinity of creation, and it can never quite get there, but it tries. And some people love that. They come here for that sci-fi weird experience, of the Aquarian age. That's cool. But for those of us who are really into the natural technology, it's really fun and very different. And so you have the noosphere, which is our psychic connection to the planet, and that's where the elemental weather working, grid working comes into play. And then we also have through our nervous system and our light body into the physical grids. And one of the things that I realized a couple years ago, like where I have been stationed, is a capital city, right? And so I see the Capitol building, like I'm here, like all these things are going down, these old paradigm things. But there's also, newness coming into play. And I was like wandering around the Capitol building when I first moved here in 2021. And the tree networks, there were like, trees that were like hundreds of years old all over the property, all around this building, where the laws are being made. And I was like, oh my God, the tree people are holding it down. And then you realize like their roots, like how deep their roots go. Like, and then the same day I received, oh my gosh, I remember when I was little, people would always say, oh, if there's a lightning storm, like don't sit on the concrete, like don't sit on wet concrete, like watch out like for wet concrete, like it can be a conductor, like there's some conductive elements. And then I thought, oh my God, here they are thinking they can pave over the whole planet and disconnect us from the grids. But actually, like if we think about the composite of concrete and all these different things, they're still natural materials. They're still organic materials. They're still superconductor materials on some level, right? So then I started grid working with the concrete in the city, like seeing it
I
as,
love that perspective
you
so
know,
much. It's such a like, I love when I have a perspective that allows me to shift away from like any sort of limited fear programming because we live in Los
yes.
Angeles and there's the urban dead zones. And of course there's nuance and like the truth to all of this. Like, but I just love, I feel like that's such a powerful perspective just in my mind instead of seeing just like this dead earth, like suffocated by the concrete. It's like just to start. And the power of like us being grid workers in Los Angeles, like our visualizing that does make a big difference. So yeah, that's just so potent.
So epic. That truly is really
Right. And so
great.
even
Yeah.
if you're in an urban environment, for the most part, you still have trees.
Hmm.
And so that's like Gaia, that's why I love her so much because she's like not loud, she's not in your face, and yet she's like, I'm here, we got this. And I'm
And
just like,
it's
oh.
no, it's so true. And we live in a very like city part of LA. And some of those insane trees ever like live
Oh, huge.
up and down our up
Yeah.
and down our blocks, like humongous,
Huge.
towering, the craziest root systems I've
Insane.
ever seen. And like we come from the
The
Pacific
sidewalks
Northwest.
do not
Right.
stand a
Yeah.
chance. The sidewalks are crumbled.
No, really,
Yeah.
it's actually so true. Like, oh, they get broken up. They get like it. So it is, and it's amazing because I'm just like, people really do think that it's just, which I guess in some city areas it is. I mean, it genuinely looks like a city, and at the same time, it's so wild. Like, I'll be walking up and down the street, and I'll be like, I hear tropical birds everywhere. Like, where are they coming from? But they're like living in these massive trees that are like universes within themselves, and it really is so amazing. And honestly, the meeting of these things, it might be very part of this future that we're entering, and like a very powerful meeting of these forces. So thank you for bringing that energy into the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I think that's important for us to know because I don't want anyone to ever feel limited by like the old way of looking at where we live, like you know, a lot of the old paradigm structures are still in place. Like we don't live in crystal cities fully yet, but you can see how it's actually there and it's always been there. And that's what's really cool. And like Gaia is still in charge no matter what. Like even like, you know, upending the sidewalk, she goes below the asphalt. You know what I mean? Like the mycelium are there, guys. Like tap
Totally.
into the mycelium consciousness. That's a really great activation on my YouTube, the messages of the mycelium. You can just tune into them, and it's this like ancient consciousness, like in the center of the earth, that is literally going through. It's like the original internet, like the real Google. You know, Google wishes it was the mycelium, you know. And so you can tune in and connect and tap in and travel in an astral form anywhere on the planet, you know, through yourself, like with them too. And yeah, so that's what's so cool.
That's so amazing. And yeah, I almost do feel like where the cities are these hot spots for like maybe the most potential grid work possible.
Yes.
There's so many people, there's so much energy. A lot of them I think have been formed around energy vortexes, and a lot of people doing very powerful things who like I feel like have very powerful missions have flocked to them for, you know, reasons they know and reasons they don't know. So these are these are definitely codes that canon should be used everywhere. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing. Yeah.
I feel like we should just encourage everyone, like whatever major city you're in right now on the planet, to just connect and see yourself as a light pillar, and let's unify together in this now. And you can almost feel like the hum of that electricity of everyone like so stoked to come online to like this real crystalline, the real, it's called the intranet, right? Instead of the internet, the intranet, because it goes through us to one another. And just see your light pillars lighting up all your cities, all of your counties, where you are, the state that you're in, the province that you're in, however they define your territory, going to your continent where you are, right? And continuing to just expand to the whole planet. And just know that that exists in this moment in time and forever. All you have to do is just tap back into that again. Say, I want to tap into my brothers and sisters in the unified field, you know, and to connect into the grid, right? And you mentioned too, like how we're never separate from source. Like that's what we have to remember when we're doing our programming is, you know what? In the old paradigm, I thought I was alone, but that's not the truth. So I got this. The universe has my back. I have whole legions of angels with me, my ancestors. Like you want to start expanding your remembrance of all that is here with you in your DNA right now. You know, how powerful we are, you know, and that's that connection is the power, the pure power with that love force is unstoppable.
100%. I love that so much. And you know, it can be, this is what I like to think about. There's this teaching in Kundalini yoga that when you bring your awareness to your breath, your aura instantly expands. So it's like, oh, it's 111 here. So there are these powers that are innate within us when they say like remember who you are. And you know, it's like, okay, what we have all this latent potential and it is who we actually are, but when you actually bring your awareness to it and you choose to embody it and accept it, that is when it's really all like fully activated. So that is, like you said, it's like, okay, if we're all part of this unified field and we all are always connected to source, almost, then what's the point of really doing anything? But it's like that is, we have free will on this planet, and when we are consciously bringing our awareness to things and we're then more and more moving into the state of always embodying that awareness, that's when our light bulb turns on and we're really like fully, that we're embodying our power, and then we're all able to link up in this way. And I love when you talk about the unified field. I remember when I was listening to one of your videos and you were also doing that visualization and you were like talking about connecting to this unified field. Would you mind just like giving a little bit about, you know, what is this field and how, when we're grid working and linking up to it, this can benefit us as well as the planet as a whole, slash, I'm sure beyond the planet.
Sure. So I first learned about the field when I was starting to study quantum physics through the Vedas, you know, through like the yoga stuff. And they would talk about be a knower of the field. And I was like, oh my God. It was like
That's so
all this
dope.
stuff's right. Like all this stuff started opening up because we have these ingrained perceptions that we are like ripping out by the seams now of being separate, right? So all we have to do is remember, I'm not separate, and then just let your imagination run wild. But here's some key codes for anyone who wants to explore this, like Indra's net. Indra, Indra is one of the Vedic gods, also the god of the rain, like all these beautiful cosmological concepts. And it's kind of also like the original crystalline internet. It's also, if you see the beautiful artwork of Alex Gray and like the way that he portrays everything, it's like grids upon grids. So it's almost like if you looked at a graphing notebook, right? And you see all of those, interlacing like lines, right? Like, so it's a matrix. So that's the divine matrix, right? And so we want to make sure that we clarify like the word matrix and what that means. And matrix is a convergence point. Like, I remember I first learned that word when I was studying crystals in elementary school, and they talked about a matrix, which was where different formations of the crystals on one certain kind of crystal are meeting together. So it's a point of convergence. And so we want to realize like we are part of the divine matrix, which has a completely different set of laws, right? The unified field is held together by the divine, loving, abundant wisdom of creation of God. So it's like the field of God consciousness, unified field, unity consciousness. So the greatest lie that we are all now like in various phases just getting ripped up out of, like for those who are newer to this stuff, it is a lot to take in, but we're seeing where all the lies have been about being separate from this, and that's not true. Like we're made of all of it, together. And so it's your ability in any now moment to just be like, wait a minute, I forgot, like I'm not separate, I am a part of creation. Like, and that's where we take that action from. Like I love when you said, well, what, then we don't have to do anything. And you're right, and on a level, yes, we don't have to do anything. And then that inspired action, the energy will come through us and show us where to take action in order to be the change, right? So it's very interesting. It's like combining receiving, which is that feminine quality, and then being full, and so full that you're overflowing, and then you're inspired, divinely inspired to do something, whether it's to go out and do random acts of kindness, or whatever, however you want to define that action of showing up as that energy, because it has to be expressed. And so
Uh-huh.
the doing is the expression, like us doing this podcast right now, like this beautiful intention of illuminating and supporting our family out there, our soul family out there, and sharing, like sharing light, sharing information, sharing consciousness. It comes through every single form. Even like you were saying earlier, like not even speaking, just being, like just emanating that like a lantern, like
Yeah.
radiating, or lighthouse. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's like almost like the main thing to do is, because I feel like it's almost, when we come into this realm, it is some sort of like a school and a test to have to align ourselves from this artificial matrix that was created and like is very alluring, very distracting. You can be so deep in it that you think it's all there is. And then you wake up and you're like, okay, no, there's actually this divine matrix. I am divine, but like I kind of have to train myself out of being so associated with this artificial matrix and this artificial sense of self, and replug back into my greater sense of self and replug back into this divine matrix where anything is possible because it is infinite, and within it you are infinite, and within this artificial matrix there are limits. And so, like we actually in our previous podcast did an episode on the organic versus the artificial matrix, and the
Right.
artificial matrix is like within the divine matrix. So you're not going to lose access to the artificial matrix and your life and all these things that are happening, but you are going to be in this space of remembrance of your infinite nature, your infinite power, and then like the infinite sacred divine nature of all of life itself, and like be in that reverence for it in that way. And from that space, if the one thing to do is move yourself from that artificial to that organic to that divine space, then from there, yeah, what naturally flows through will be from that divine infinite space that will benefit you and all beings. And then I think there is, at least while we're here on the planet, I think it does serve ourselves to actually act on all of those things, because the more that you move that energy, like you were saying, and the more that you express, the more you help others, and the more that you will the more that you'll receive, because you're like, okay, this channel is actually doing something with all that we're flowing through it, so let's give them more and more and more. And it's like really this ecstatic experience of being able to bring more of that divine energy into this realm, like bring more of the infinite into the finite, and we're like merging and we're merging and we're being that channel for heaven and earth, between heaven and earth, until, you know, they eventually become one. And yeah.
Yes, I love this topic so much. I love everything you both said. I almost think of the organic matrix as like almost like the space-time continuum, or the fabric of the space-time continuum. And I love how you mentioned Indra's net. I believe I've seen an illustration of that. The idea I have in my mind is like, if you imagine a spider web, and at every intersection of the strands, there's a water droplet, and inside each of the water droplet is like a fractal reflection from every direction of all the other intersections of the spider web, and all the other water droplets, and all of the reflections inside those water droplets. So it becomes a very complex crystalline network of intersections. And then if you are to perceive yourself as this water droplet, and then perceive that actually instead of the web being reflected in, it's actually being projected out. And that's what you're perceiving. And so I think that it ties into what we mentioned many times, which is the holofractographic unified field theory, which is what we're talking about, which the holofractographic nature of this field, if the field is the whole web and all the droplets, and you're this one little droplet, you can see it all and affect it all internally, because it's all within you as this super complex fractalized reflection. So I think it's amazing. That's what we're all about. We love it.
I love it. I love that visual. Thank you, Calista.
So
That was
awesome.
good.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that word too. That's so great.
I know, right? That's like the most fun
You say it
vocab
again.
word.
Say it again. It's so fun.
Holofractographic.
Use a quantum holograph. Yeah.
It's so good. I know.
We need to make shirts of that, actually.
Yeah.
I think we'll send you one, Merissa.
Just a holofractographic girl in a linear world.
In a linear time-space continuum.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I love it. Wow, that's wonderful. It's just wonderful. Yeah, and that's what's so important to remember. And so, like when you were talking about the artificial, you know, and then breaking away into the organic, it's true. Like they're all part of divinity. They're all part of the plan to awaken. So it's like whatever role we're witnessing others partake in, like, hey, it's all contributing to the shift. Even the people who signed on, you know, for these like dark roles, you know, just to use a word, they're still helping people wake up. Everyone's doing their part. Everything's doing their part. It's like one of my mentors would say, it's all God's drama. And then we're not separating and judging, or like, oh, they're doing the dark role and I'm doing the light role. No, we're all doing the roles, and it's all aligned for each person. Just mind your own, you know, stay in your own lane. You know what I mean? Like there's no judgment or separation, because it's all based on, like you were talking about with that fractal aspect, like the soul's own unique whatever it's signed up for, you know, in this life, right? Which is unique. And so we can't cast judgment upon another, because that's their world, you know, and their reality. Just focus on yours. But what's important is one of the main key codes of this year being an 8 is this quantum reality, is that with your energy as your currency, we came to invest it. So it's like breath, it's like the infinity loop. You know, you have to inhale and you have to exhale. So we receive this wisdom, and it's our responsibility to share, right? Because we're stewards of the wisdom. So it's like lighting sparks, you know, lighting hearts up all across the fields, all across the grids. And then they remember. And then their DNA is pinging on and getting activated. And then they're coming online with their gifts, right? And so one of the biggest, like, and it's kind of gnarly. And so this is Capricorn. So these are some of the lessons of Capricorn, which is very, very beneficial. You know, it's the ascension and the descension of the process of consciousness, is that we will get what we give. And so, you know, that also assists us to deprogram more of the old paradigm with the lack consciousness or hoarding. hoarding energy, like, well, I feel really good. I got mine, like F everything else, so that's separate. Like, so we watch these things, um, these habits, like, and that's where you could see some people maybe go to the Pisces, element again of like, well, I'm good. I'm in my, I'm in the now. So this is some of the bypassing. So I'm sharing this because we always want to be aware, right? Because that ego is always waiting, and that's good. That's part of the stimulation. We wouldn't have it any other way, but it's really being aware and on your toes in a way, of yourself, like, and this is where that self accountability and self mastery comes from, is like, okay, am I resting right now? Am I avoiding right now? Am I resisting? Where am I? What does this feel like? And you'll feel it inside, like, not even having to be like crazy analytical inside, but just feel, do you feel relaxed, or do you feel tense about something, and letting your body be the biofeedback, to give you that information of any choice, any decision, like any thought form. You're going to start to become so sensitive to everything that comes through you, like we talked about, like self, not self, but it's important that we also, it's putting on a mantle, and it's like a graduation of, okay, I have this gift, whether it's singing or being an artist or a bazillion. Everyone, you guys, you're all going to have like 12 million expressions of divinity coming through you, comedy, perhaps dance, being with children, like communicating with nature, like whatever, tarot. I mean, it could be 100 million passions that are going to come through, and they light you up. And we are given those to share. And that's part of this like abundance consciousness, that we will get what we give, and so you want to give it your all, and that's one of the things that Lisa has taught us. Like, she really drills down, is that you've got to share. And so for anyone out there, if you're experiencing, and there's many reasons for all of the different, instabilities that we're experiencing, right? Like, so a lot of us are in a new space of learning, or remembering rather, how to integrate our gifts and to live in this like higher frequency, and allow that to support us abundantly through our finances, right? And so some things, it's a consistent effort. It could take time, quote unquote, but really it's the energy, it's living in that energy. So it's not always the external action. It's also, are we giving ourselves that energy? Are we committing to that like sacred relationship inside, like the holy marriage inside of self with higher self, where that is who we are and who we be and who we come from? Are we giving ourselves that energy? What does it take to give ourselves that energy? So, whole new relational experience, right? Of boundaries, no longer engaging in this, maybe dietary shifts, like all kinds of ways, that energy will come.
Mhm.
But that's a huge one, right? Is that we'll get what we give, and it's challenging to, like, also to, again, more deprogramming of like, well, what is success? What is wealth? What is, all these things, like, we have to allow them to come through, a new, an increased perspective,
Absolutely.
right?
I
Versus
think
the old way, right? Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
No, definitely. I mean, that is such a potent and powerful point. And I think, not to say that everybody experiences this, but I think it can be kind of common of, who am I to share? Like, why would I expect that people would want to receive something from me? Or there's so many reasons why we might hold ourselves back from expressing. It could be because, we're like, well, I don't know that like this exact avenue of me giving is gonna come back in like this exact form of financial abundance, or there's so many different ways that you don't know that could stop you from expressing in a certain way. But I think that encouragement is so beautiful, because that infinity loop, like, that is the nature of life. Like, it moves, energy moves, and it is literally universal law that you get what you give. And I have seen this play out so deeply. And I feel like in spaces where, for example, I've like wanted to be really integrous with what I offer, to a point where like it feels really good to me. Like, I'm like, I know I'm not skimping on this, because I genuinely like want to give my best, even though I know what I'm receiving this now moment like isn't an exact like equality to what I'm giving. But I'm like, I know that doesn't matter, because like I know that through this Indra's net of the universe, that's going to be fractaled back to me. It could be at a completely different time, a completely different space, but I know that it will be returned to me, and it always is. And that get what you give, it's so, so true. Like, you give from your heart, you give from your soul, you give your best in the way that you really feel called to, and you don't have to worry about the way that it's going to be returned. And also opening the channel up to share in whatever way you feel inspired is one of the most fulfilling, incredible things, because I really think it's like what we came here to do. We came here to be that channel for those divine ideas, learning how to give them structure, learning how to give them a place to be here and to reach others. And it is so divine. And I love that with the 8-year, because the 8-year is that it's that infinite energy loop, and they say it's a lot connected to karma, but also like dharma, and that is the whatever you put out vibrationally, it's going to come back and you are going to experience it. So to just like have joy and faith that in that heartfelt, soul inspired giving in whatever route, that it's going to come back to you. And that is almost like the greatest security you can have, is just like always. They say there's like no absolute security in this world, but I feel like almost one of the things that can give you security is just like to give and give and give, because then like God has always got you. Like, God is the greatest giver, and you're aligning with that frequency, and you'll always consistently be supported in the most incredible divine ways. So thank you so much for bringing that point in. And I know you brought so many things to share, and I'm sure those codes were some of them. Are there like some final things that you feel like the collective really needs to hear before we close out?
Yes, this is good. This is so organic. I love the way we flow because it always works out perfectly. As we're deprogramming, as we're exiting the matrix, as we are seeing more and more and more where everything that we were told, everything that we thought was true, it wasn't. That can be a lot for people, right? And so we do have certain things that are those certain inalienable truths. So as we're going through this process and everything, depending on how intense the process gets for everyone out there and all of us, we remember who we are, we remember why we came, and we remember that we know a few things. We know a few things. We may not know much anymore, right? But we know a few things, like divine cosmic law, right? Like the law of cause and effect, like the fact. So here's some facts. When none of the facts are real anymore, there are still a few, right? And that's the abundance of God, right? So that we have these very simple concepts to build our new reality from, these divine laws. So for instance, the universe is loving and abundant and generous, right? So many of us, when we talk about the old paradigm and leaving, well, the old paradigm was abusive. It was abusive. It wasn't love. Love was not valued in the old paradigm, which is why so many of us struggled so much. It's like, why would I come to a place like this that kind of feels more like a hell realm, right? And so when we flip it, because the upper realms are a flip, an inverse matrix in the divine matrix, right? It's all about love and generosity and abundance. And so as we're going through and we're like defragmenting, right? And you're going through these dark nights of the soul. And sometimes you're like, am I losing my fucking mind? Right? Because these things happen. Like, I want to get real with people with the psychological processes that happen. Think about what Neo went through in the movie The Matrix. He gets unplugged and then he gets flushed down into this sewage and he's like, what the hell? So that's like hardcore awakening. That's hardcore dark night of the soul stuff. We have to understand, like, many of us have already been through several of those cycles, but there will be masses who are going to just start this process, which is why we're so thankful to be here and offer support, right? Why we're here for everybody. And so hold on to the truths that you do know are true, and you'll discover more truths about yourself as you go. But it becomes very simple. I am love. I am love. This isn't loving. This isn't kind. What I'm doing to myself, what that person is doing to me, or this thing is doing. And it's not about a victim thing. It's using it as the only thing you have sometimes, right? You're just there in the universe, in the dark, and you're like, oh my God, what is going on? Well, we know what love is. So even if it's just that one thing, and we know what it feels like now, right? And we know that it has an infinite capacity. So that's a lot of the times how I would crawl out of these dark nights of the soul, is like, just with these, you have a couple, like you get one match, but that match turns into a torch, and then you walk out and you're like, damn, all right, cool, and you have a couple cycles of those and you build more resilience with that and more faith and trust, right? But it's these laws of the universe, faith and trust in yourself, You're not going crazy. Everything was crazy and you're coming out of it. And especially for those, like I was receiving this morning, getting ready to meet with you all, like when you're the only one perhaps in your community or in your family that's awakening right now. And everyone else is like, you know, the black sheep thing, right? That stuff's really hard, you know? So just know you're not alone. You're not alone in this, you know, and you have these certain laws of the universe. And I wanted to share this resource for those who are new to metaphysics or hermetics in general. This is a game changer. And it's only like, I think it's like 7 to 12, you know, divine laws, some of them being like the law of cause and effect, right? So like we talk about that infinity loop. So sometimes you're like, I don't know how I'm going to survive. Like when we still live in this system that requires money, but what I do doesn't seem to be valued by the majority. How am I going to make it? You know, so these are real questions that we have, right? This is important. Like we want to get real and raw with you all. And then you remember, well, we do live in a karmic universe and I'm here to serve. And those who are looking for me, we will find each other because we signed up for this, right? No matter how it looks to me, how it feels to me, I can't see, I don't know details. You know what I mean? I don't even know what tomorrow's going to bring, right? So we're really learning how to be in the nano of this now. But this resource, sorry, is the Kybalion, the book, The Kybalion. The Kybalion, you know, it was written by they're very mysterious. It has to do with, you know, Thoth and the Hermetics and Hermes Trismegistus and these amazing ascended master teachers, but it's very mysterious because it says it was written, you know, anonymously by 3 initiates put together for us. But these are some of those ancient teachings for these times, so that when we're like, nothing is real, what's truth, you know, like wide-eyed looking around trying to figure it out, get the original. There's a lot of modified texts these days. You got to be really, you know, practice your discernment. Try to find an old version, like the 1930s, you know, of the Kybalion. But that will give you a rapid onboarding of Hermetic law because you already have all of this within you. It just may be a little bit buried. You may have to dust it off, right? Under perhaps trauma, stories, some fear. You know, we have to get into the data mining. We say, you know, the intel inside, the gems of your truth, knowledge, wisdom, power, love, beauty that you are, that you have always been. We have to sometimes do some soul archaeology to dig those up and find them, which is why we have these harsh experiences sometimes, right? So you have to know your metal sometimes, right? But this will be a really powerful resource, and you don't even have to buy it. You can find a PDF form online if you're a good little internet sleuth.
YouTube also. You can
Okay,
find audio, like put it on 1.5 speed, whatever. Yeah.
fabulous. There you go. See? Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Thank you for the recommendation. I have listened to that text. It is a dense text. It does break down the metaphysics in a very straightforward way, section by section of these different laws. So it is so good. And I so appreciate you speaking to that perspective of someone who is like in the dark, because we've all been in that place where we found those words of wisdom and encouragement that were the spark to pull us out of that place. So I think it's so important and beautiful to look back and share your wisdom of what helped you to provide that experience to others. And I would also love to reflect a little bit on the previous thing that you shared, which I think ties so into like what you guys had been discussing about kind of that thought of like, oh, well, once I'm like all looped into the one harmonic, you know, field of everybody, then almost that kind of fear of like losing the individuality and the drive to exert the will through your action. And I think like it just makes me think that the ego, it can have a bad connotation. Like we don't all think of it as a bad thing, but your ego is basically like your personality. Like my ego is like Callista, like that is on Earth. And so I love her. Like she's very fun. And the thing is, she doesn't know everything about myself, and I don't know everything about her. And it's like a co-creation and a discovery. And when we can tap into our true self and this channel, tune into God, tune into the divine, God actually gifts us aspects of our ego in the form of like desires and affinities. And these things are so natural when you connect to your true self. It's not like you are just like, oh, I'll just be still and feel absorbed with like everyone else. Actually, you gain so much more depth of appreciation for what makes you unique, what you love, what you want to create. So, I just think that what you were sharing earlier was making me think of that too. And I just love everything that you brought to share to this conversation today. It was so magical to connect with you and definitely inspiring and energizing.
And I feel like it's such a testament too to like sometimes there is a divine break because there are times there obviously like consistency and showing up and like being that offering is so beautiful. And I feel like that's that Saturnian energy that we can so deeply benefit from in this realm. It's like definitely one of the greatest human gifts and lessons is being able to create that structure for ourselves. And then sometimes it's like, okay, there is some kind of upgrade that needs to happen that requires like a cocoon. And I feel like you have come back in this. We've always been totally obsessed with you, but I feel like honestly it's mutual. Like we came brainwash yourself, divine rising new earth is like a totally quantum leap from that. And I feel like your energy and everything that you offered, it's like in this like whole new expanded space. Like I feel like it's just like so incredible. I mean, we were probably always like, how could Merissa get any better? But like it's just like it's so cool to meet at this whole new level. And I feel like it's just that's another thing that like your time and everything you did, you know, whatever it consisted of, I'm sure was so part of this incredible divine plan. So I'm honoring you for honoring that, and thank you for coming back stronger and brighter and deeper than ever. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much, ladies. It's just been wonderful, and I love what you were sharing too about ego, and that brings up a really good point, is that we want to be careful with words because we all have different meanings for words. We do. Every word
Mhm.
is a file. So I'm going to clarify by the separated self, the unconscious self that is has the victim consciousness. That's what I'll say, the non-true self. Because yes, sometimes when we use ego, there are so many layers of that. So I love that you brought that up because it's important that we're clear. And like, you know, one of the biggest things I learned when I started this journey of like esoteric quantum physics was that each of us, a word is a file, like a rabbit hole inside of our consciousness that means different things. And so just to clarify, like, you know, not an attack on the individual or the person or anything like that, nothing like that. Just the invitation to see the wholeness versus the fractal and to love it all regardless, you know. Yeah, so I hope that that is clear, like for everyone out there, you know.
100%. And I think Eckhart Tolle does such a good job describing the ego where I can love my ego and she's so
Yeah,
cute, but I'm not going to let her run the show because she
that's
does
it.
have certain tendencies. She
Yeah,
is afraid of change. She is afraid to surrender.
yeah.
But
Good.
exactly.
That's
Mhm,
good. No,
mhm,
I love how we flow together, ladies, because the more
mhm.
that we're bringing this, then it makes it more digestible for people, right? To meet them where they are. And so I'm just so proud of you, and I'm so grateful to
Oh,
be here. And I'm so excited for all the wonderful people out there in the audience, all the beautiful souls out there in the audience. You know, it's just such a joy and such a gift. So thank you so much for this.
Genuinely. Yes, just the beginning of this new realm for us both. So we hope to talk to you again soon. Be so blessed until then and be in touch. We love you.
we love you. Thank you
Love
so,
you.
so much.
Thank you.